What's up, world? This is Salim with Flip for Figs, and today I'm going to show you my Lego collection, all of my modular buildings, large direct-to-consumer sets, Harry Potter, Marvel, and everything in between. So let's dive in.
Flip for Figs.
When I flip, you flip, we flip.
Alrighty, so before we get started, a couple things I wanted to point out. If you watched my Lego Star Wars collection tour, you know that I've been collecting Lego ever since I was old enough to really take care of them myself. And so I love Lego sets, and I kind of got into these larger ones in the early 2010s. And around the time I got engaged, I actually sold my entire Lego collection, including my modulars and all my Star Wars sets and whatnot. During the pandemic, I got back into it, and my collection has grown quite a bit since then. This is the biggest it's ever been. This is one wall, and I'll show you several others as the collection tour goes on. But the reason I wanted to point that out is because some of these modulars, I owned them the first time, with box and instructions and everything like that. And then when it came time to rebuy them, since I was playing catch up on a lot of the newer modulars, I decided that I needed to bricklink some of the other ones. So some, like the Fire Brigade and the Town Hall, I actually just bought every piece I could possibly get from Lego directly to, rebuild them. And then with the Green Grocer and Cafe Corner, I bought the pieces off Bricklink. Now with the Green Grocer, you'll notice that I'm not using the specialized 1x2 brick. I just used standard 1x2 sand green bricks because those inverted or those specialized 1x2 bricks are just really expensive. I do plan to eventually make the Green Grocer kind of 100% accurate, but for now it's close enough aside from what those 1x2 specialized bricks. And since I used to own it in the past, it just was hard to kind of justify spending so much. But now that I've gotten that disclaimer out of the way, I really just wanted to say it because if you're a Lego freak like me, you may have noticed that as I was passing over the Green Grocer, and I just wanted you to know that I'm aware that it isn't 100% accurate, but it is what it is. So let's get started. I'm going to start on this lower level here. So here in the corner, we have the most recent Lego modular. And this one is the Tudor Corner. And this was a great return to form for Lego. I feel like the previous modulars, had kind of been a little bit of a letdown. Personally, I was really let down by the National History Museum or whatever it's called. And this really felt like a return to form for Lego. I mean, it was a beautiful corner building. It kind of reminded me of like the Brick Bank as well as Cafe Corner in all the best ways. And so big fan of this modular when it was announced, and I picked it up day one and I really love it. And I will do a separate ranking of all of my favorite modular buildings, and in that video I'll go through all the different floors and features, but for now I'm just going to kind of walk you through. Now this is the Bookshop. So this was actually one of the first modulars I bought once I got back into Lego. I think this one came out in I think it was 2020 or 2021, but it was kind of during the pandemic, and it was one of the first modulars I kind of, started buying again. And I really like this one as well. I'm a San Francisco native, and so I love that this little building on the side kind of looks like it's, a San Francisco style building with the stairs leading up and kind of a little bit Victorian and everything. And the Bookshop is nice beside it as well. And what's cool about this one is it's kind of reminiscent of the pet shop in that you can separate the buildings, put them on either side of each other, or kind of mix and match them in different areas of your street, which I think is cool. I personally like them together, so I'm leaving it that way. It also did come with this tree, which is pretty fun, and a lot of great minifigures as well. And then here we have the police station. So the police station released, I think this was actually the 2020 modular. And I remember thinking that it was interesting timing because at least here in the US, there was a lot of kind of discourse around, police. And I don't want to get into anything political or anything like that, but it was just an interesting choice for that year, needless to say. But personally, it's one of my favorite modular buildings. I love that, even though it's a standard base plate, they really made the most out of it by including two buildings on either side. So you have the donut shop there, and then you have this little kind of alley / little newspaper office and stand. And it's just so much fun in this modular. And this was actually probably one of my favorite modulars ever when I built it, which is saying something because I always felt like every new modular release never compared to like the original 5. And we'll talk about that in a bit as we go up to the upper level. But for me, this police station, similarly to the Tudor Corner, I really thought it was a return to form for Lego. I love how tall it is. You know, modulars seem to be getting smaller every year, so it was really nice kind of having this big modular that was separated into 3 buildings. Now, next to that, we have the detective shop or detective office. I forget exactly what it's called. But this one was interesting because when this was launched, it was right as I was kind of getting out of Lego because I had gotten engaged and everything like that. And I remember it looked a little too kiddie for me. I think it was just the color scheme of that bright blue along with that kind of pool sign and everything like that. I know this is one of many people's favorite modulars because of all like the different features that it has and the story behind it. But for me, I was never a huge fan of this modular. It's grown on me since, and definitely there's so much detail involved, and I love the story that you can kind of do with it with the detective's office. But in terms of size, it was just kind of, I felt it was small, and I felt that it was, you know, all of these bricks right here were a little too simplified. And I love that it's kind of a billiard office and a detective office and a barber shop, so it's got all the right things going for it. I just felt like it was a little small and definitely didn't fit the vibe of the rest of the modular street at the time. Here we have the Jazz Club. So this is a fun one because it's kind of like the only nightclub on the Lego street. This is another one, more recent one that I felt kind of like, okay, Lego, these modulars are starting to get big again after they were kind of getting smaller and smaller. But as time has gone on, this one actually has become less popular in my eyes. I don't know. It just, I think I would have preferred if it was kind of a bigger, like one building instead of 2 buildings next to each other, or if this building wasn't so much shorter. I think if it was, you know, up to here or even a little bit lower, it would have looked better. And then the color scheme, it was like too similar to the Fire Brigade, and I know they were thinking about like a dark blue. I saw other people kind of change the color scheme, and I felt like it looked better in every other color scheme other than this one. So I don't know, I just don't love this one. Also, I remember thinking that it was odd that it came with so few minifigures. I don't think there's even a server for like the inside of the lounge and things like that. But you know, the fact that they incorporated a pizza shop is cool. It definitely reminded me of like my clubbing days when we'd go for pizza, you know, after being at the club all night. So it's kind of cool. And then here is the boutique hotel. So again, I don't know how familiar you guys are with the San Francisco Bay Area, but there is a town called Sausalito, which is right across the Golden Gate Bridge, and it's an oceanside little town, and they have a bunch of boutique hotels. There's one called the Inn Above Tide that my brother used to work at. And for some reason, this boutique hotel just reminds me of that ambiance, just like a little seaside hotel. It also had the Inn Above Tide had an art gallery nearby, and I love that this has an art gallery. It just makes it feel like a really posh hotel. And I put that little kind of Ferrari there and the luggage cart, and I don't know, I really love this set. I love the angle of it. I know that for many they felt that, you know, it was smaller than it should have been, like there's a lot of wasted base plate space, but I like the angle. I thought they tried something new, and it was a great way to kind of make it a unique build. I definitely think that it looks better from this angle where you can see the staircase as opposed to the other side, which it just kind of feels not as interesting. But this is a great modular set. All right, and here's the brick bank. So, funny story about this set. When this set was announced, I was so disappointed. I remember thinking like, this is the lamest modular ever. It is so small. It is so boring. I just remember like I had gotten out of Lego at this point because I had sold it, and I remember thinking, okay, I'm glad that I'm not having FOMO over this set, right? So, long story short, when I got back into it, I was able to find every single piece directly from the Lego website, including the sticker sheet because it had just kind of recently retired. And once I built it, this actually became one of my favorite modulars ever. I don't know what it is about this side of the building, but I just love it. I love that even though the main facade is kind of a boring kind of bank, that this with the laundromat and everything, it's just adds so much character to the street, and I absolutely love it. And the inside of the bank is really beautiful. The vault and the tiling and everything like that is just wonderful. And because it's such an unsuspecting set, I think many people kind of forget about this modular. It's not the most popular, it's not the most rare, but for me, I absolutely love it. And I think because I wasn't expecting to love it at all, I was expecting to get it just to be a completionist, and it ended up becoming one of my favorites. And it still is one of my top modulars now. I don't know exactly where it'll rank, but when I do my ranking video, we'll see. But I just love it. Again, it would have been nice if it was a little bit taller, but I still feel like it's a heavy set, and there's a lot of pieces in there. So, all right, another newer modular. This is the museum, and I know that this was super hyped before it was launched, and once it was kind of revealed, I remember being pretty nonplussed about it. Like, I don't love the color scheme. I feel like, it could have benefited from being taller. Like, compared to the other modulars beside it, even the pet shop, it's just really low. I think a set like this, it's kind of like the new X-Men X Mansion. It just feels like it needs to be a level higher if you're really trying to make it this imposing structure. And I think obviously it makes sense why they decided to dedicate the whole thing to being a museum, but I think this is a set that would have benefited from like an alternative color scheme on one of the side buildings or something like that, because to me it's just really boring. The inside is super detailed, don't get me wrong. There's a lot to like in there. There's the whole dinosaur skeleton and all the different exhibits, and kind of a little homage to different Lego sets of yesteryear. But this is probably one of my least favorite modulars, and I remember thinking that when I saw it, and then I bought it, and after building it I was just like, "Meh," and that's kind of how I still feel about it. So, all right, this is one half of the pet shop. So as I mentioned with the bookshop, the pet shop is two buildings that you can kind of put next to each other, and neither one is that great. And this was right as Lego was kind of starting to detail their interiors. But the interior on this building is pretty empty. There's just a guy painting a wall in there, kind of in the apartment. This one's also kind of reminiscent of San Francisco. Actually, this is more like a New York brownstone to me. But but yeah, this, I actually like the pet shop portion better, but this one, the color scheme is just a little off, and I don't know, I don't love it, and I kind of don't care where I stick it. So yeah. All right, the Parisian Restaurant. This is one of the longest running modulars. It was available for like 6 or 7 years, I think, something crazy. And on its own, it's a fantastic building. There's no complaints about it. The detail work, the little side patio, the stairs, the interior, everything about it is just wonderful. The architecture, all of the details there is fantastic. But in terms of the modulars, I really like all the modulars kind of bunched up together. I hate the gaps, and this one creates such a gap that anywhere I put it, it just seems awkward. And I even considered kind of displaying this one on its own, just because I don't love it on the modular street. Now, I put it next to the diner, which doesn't make sense because I always felt like the Parisian restaurant would be next to like the boutique hotel in the fancy part of town, and then this is kind of my downtown area. But I feel like since the diner and this one have those side stairs, it just works, because the only thing better than one unsightly gap is two unsightly gaps together. But yeah, I love the Parisian restaurant. I think it's a great standalone set. In terms of a modular building and being on the street, I don't love it that much. And I always, I understand all the praise it gets as a standalone building, but as one of the modulars, it's just not one of my favorites. Now, these two, the diner and the corner garage, I think they look great together, but these two are among my least favorite modulars, even though there's a lot to like and the build and everything like that. I know the diner was a very bold choice at the time, kind of like the detective's office. It felt like the color scheme just didn't really go with the theme of the modular street at the time. It felt a little too cutesy and colorful. It kind of looks like, it reminds me of like Val's Diner, in Cars Land at California Disneyland California Adventure, with that kind of teal color. But it looks good next to the corner garage, and these were kind of released back to back, so I can dig it. But these two are kind of modulars that I wouldn't miss if, as you see, I'm starting to run out of space, and so they're definitely going to take less priority when some better modulars come around. All right, now let's walk back over here. and we'll go up. Now, this is the part of town that I consider kind of like my Main Street USA, because the Disney Castle is there at the end. And it's also where I decided to display my Disney minifigures. And I've really tried to collect most of the Disney minifigures because I love that classic Disney stuff. Now, Cafe Corner, say what you will about it, say what you will about how there's no interior or anything like that. To me, this is still one of the best modulars ever. I just love the exterior of it, and I have always been a fan of it. And even as time has gone on and all of these new updated build techniques and interiors, because I'm not actually going into the interiors or playing with them, I've never been fussed about modular interiors. And so I'd rather have a big, bold exterior, and that's exactly what Cafe Corner is. This is my third time kind of owning this set. I owned it new in box originally, sold it, got it again, sold it, and then built it again from Brickling. I love this set so much. That will be, I'm never getting rid of it again. Obviously, third time is a charm, and I just love the look of it. To me, it's the first, right? There's always something special about the first, and I know that some people think that there's kind of a little bit too much going on, but I just really love it, and I think it's great. And since it's the first, I kind of put Oswald and Steamboat Minnie and Mickey there to kind of represent the origins of Disney. And then we make our way through, and you can see like my Disney minifigure collection. Here's where I have like the male heroes in Disney. These are pretty much everyone you can kind of get so far from like the classic Disney cartoon. There's my green grocer with the modified bricks. Everything else in the green grocer is pretty much 100% there. It's just those 1x2 green sand green bricks. I know others use the one with like the brick pattern on it, but I just wasn't a fan of that look, and this was kind of just what I decided to go with for now. Eventually, I will either buy a green grocer like in box or used complete, or just buy those pieces. Town Hall. So this is another one that kind of I didn't think was great when it was announced. I remember I actually worked at the Lego store for a short period of time, and it was on display, and I just remember not really caring much about it. But this one ended up becoming super kind of rare on the aftermarket. I think because a lot of people like me weren't too keen on it and passed it up, and then it wasn't available that long. But it's in terms of modulars, this one's huge. There's so many floors. There's even kind of a lower level underneath the first floor, which is really cool how they did that for the courtroom and everything. And I really like it. I think it's awesome the way that they did it. And you can see I have all the Disney princesses kind of displayed here. And so speaking of Disney princesses, we finally got Belle. For a while she was the one that was omitted. So I have them in front of Town Hall with Mickey up there. Like that's like mayor candidate Mickey or whatever. So Town Hall is a good one. It's kind of dull in terms of, the color scheme, but I think it's no modular streets complete without it. So the Fire Brigade, this was actually the first modular set that I ever bought. When I got back into Lego in the 2010s originally, I remember this one had just retired, and I was still able to find it from like Walmart.com or something retail price, and I bought it. And I was instantly hooked. It was the first kind of, aside from Star Wars UCS sets, it was the first really hyper detailed, building that I had ever built. And I just remember loving it. And the fire truck, my girls were playing with it and they broke it and lost some pieces. So I'll need to rebuild that. But I have all the villains here in front of it because they're pretty fiery. And so, that's a great one. All right, Assembly Square. This is another modular set that I felt was available for a really long time, and you can see why. For a long time, it was the largest one, and it was also, I think, the 10-year anniversary set for the modulars. And what's great about this one is you could literally only have this modular, and you feel like you have a whole street. So it really benefits any modular you put next to it because there's so much going on there. I love this set. There's so many. I mean, when you pull off all the different floors and individual buildings, there's just so much to see in there. There's like a bakery, there's a dance studio, there's a pretzel shop, or, there's just so much going on, and it's great. And here I kind of have some of the more random, or not random, but like, the 100 Acre Woods characters and Robin Hood and Prince John. But yeah, that's a great modular set, and I feel like it's another one that every modular street really benefits from, especially if you're putting it next to the Disney Castle. This feels straight out of Disneyland with just the building variety and the colors and everything. Then here we have the rest of the pet shop with some of my Pixar Disney characters and the Palace Cinema. So the Palace Cinema, after the Fire Brigade, this was the next one that I bought because it was available at retail stores. And I've been to the Chinese theater. I forget the exact name, so forgive me if that's not the appropriate way to refer to it. But the Chinese theater in Hollywood, next to the Walk of Fame, and I just love that this mimics that. It even has its own little Walk of Fame around there. And this is a great one to have on your modular street because, it just what street or town is complete without a movie theater? And even in Disneyland and California Adventure, they have a theater there too, so it's pretty cool. Got Steamboat Willie here, and then I have the Disney Castle. Now, this is the original release of the Disney Castle. I've debated back and forth about getting the newer one because I actually do love the color scheme on the newer one. And I wanted the minifigures that came with it. I ended up buying those separately, so the desire to get the castle itself was a little bit reduced at that point. And I also just don't know what I would do with this one because I feel like I don't need to, and they're not different enough to recommend, to really justify getting the other one. But if the other one does eventually go on sale before it retires, I may pick it up and put like this one in one of my daughter's rooms and put that more colorful one here on the street because the colors are a little bit muted, which is more realistic in my opinion. But yeah, Disney Train and Station, as well as Snow White's Cottage. The Disney Train and Station was a set that I felt was really overpriced when it was launched. I remember it was like $350 for I think like 2,800 pieces or something like that. And then when you actually looked at it, because it came with the power functions, it's not much more than like the cargo train sets, which had fewer pieces too. So I do remember thinking that, in my opinion, it wasn't like crazy expensive, but I know a lot of people didn't get it. And this is one set. I never buy Lego just for their potential resale value, but I just felt like this set would skyrocket in value because it wasn't as popular. And I think it has. I think it's going up, maybe not as much in kind of the post-pandemic atmosphere where a lot of people started getting into Lego just to flip it. And so they've become less rare as time has gone on. But I love this set. I think it's great. And if you have the Disney Castle or these larger Disney sets, you really need the Train and Station. I love this Snow White Cottage. I hope we get more kind of classic Disney sets like this that are hyper detailed. I have no complaints about this set. I know it's a facade. It's not a fully enclosed building, but that's fine with me. It's got a really detailed interior, and I love that you got all the seven dwarfs as well as the prince and, the evil queen in both her old hag form as well as the kind of, well, actually, I don't know if it came with the queen. I'll have to check on that, but yeah. All right, and now we're going to take a look at my Ninjago City sets. So, Ninjago City is probably my, after Star Wars, it's like and the Modulars, it's like my favorite kind of sub theme in the Disney or in the, Lego direct to consumer series. So that original, I don't think any have ever compared to that original Ninjago City set on the far left, but I'm a huge fan of Japan. I went to Japan, several years ago, and I just remember wanting to take Osaka home with me. The Dotonbori, that like city around the river, just is everything I ever dreamt Japan would be like, and then some, and it was. And so I wanted to replicate that experience at home, and I feel like this is the closest way to do it. So I love this Ninjago City series. So one thing I did though is I took the Temple of Air Jitsu and I took it off the base and I kind of plugged it into the back because the Ninjago City docks, it's just, even though that's another great set, I remember thinking it was just really too low, especially compared to Ninjago City when it was just those two out. So I wanted to kind of plug in that pagoda behind there to kind of have that mix of classic and modern architecture. And so Ninjago City, and then Ninjago City Markets next to it. And that's Ninjago City Markets. Actually, I did something similar. I actually got a couple of the Monkie Kid buildings and I put them there on the top level because I just felt like it was too empty there on the top, and I really like that busy, bustling feel. So if you have the means to do so, I recommend it because I just think this looks great together with this busyness. And then, so we have the docks there, and then Ninjago City Gardens. I remember being super hyped for the gardens when they were teased, and then when they were announced, I just remember wondering, like, where are all the pieces at? It was so weird to me that this had more pieces than Ninjago City, even though it seemed really empty. I feel like that, you know, that gap on the main floor and just the orange color scheme and that blue tower in the back, it's just not one of my favorites. I think it's my least favorite Ninjago City set. I have yet to get the most recent Ninjago City. I forget what it's called at this, or workshops. Yeah, I have yet to get that just because I don't want the trouble of making room for it. But out of the ones I have, it's definitely my least favorite Ninjago City set. And then I have the original Destiny's Bounty. Now that's from the Lego movie. And I have one of the side buildings from the Temple of Air Jitsu there. Now on this top level, this is kind of what I call my etc. level. These are just some sets that I don't really have room for anyone else. There's the Grand Emporium there, which I loved when I got it, and then it's slowly kind of become one of my least favorite modulars as time went on, even though it does remind me of like going to FAO Schwartz in San Francisco as a kid. It's just, it's one that I feel like doesn't look great on the street, so I kind of plugged it up there mainly because I don't have room for it somewhere else. And then that's the Monkie Kid. I don't even remember what this set is called at this point, but I bought it because it kind of reminded me of like a mini Ninjago City, and I love the little train around there. And then that's the Monkie Kid headquarters. Monkie Kid is a great line. It doesn't get enough love, and I think because it's not available in retail stores or on Amazon and stuff like that, which is a shame because they're great builds. I don't know if the line is even still producing new sets, but it's great if you want to check it out. Now over here, I have the Barracuda Bay. This was kind of an interesting surprise because it was a Lego idea set and it was meant to be just kind of like this Pirates of the Caribbean type of environment. And then they decided to make it a 2-in-1 set with an homage to the original Black Seas Barracuda. I have mine displayed as kind of like this big, you know, atmosphere kind of thing, and I just really love it. I know that some people feel like it was a downgrade compared to the original ideas submission, which most of them tend to be in some capacity, but I really love this one. The Treehouse, which is a great idea set. This is another kind of long-running set. It may even still be available, but it's kind of one that doesn't really fit in a lot of places, so I kind of just put it wherever. Apocalypseburg, which I absolutely love. One of my favorite Lego sets of all time. I love like these busy, bustling kind of scenes where there's a bunch of stuff going on, and that's exactly Apocalypseburg. And it's also a 360 kind of degree detail, like all around the entire thing. It's not just kind of a facade or empty in the back or anything. It's a full 360 action kind of environment, which is awesome. Over here, Joker Manor. This is probably one of my favorite Lego sets of all time as well. I love the coaster around it. It's just so much fun. This is a great set. And, you know, I actually trimmed down my collection a few months ago. So I got rid of some sets like the Ideas Cabin and the Haunted House Tower Drop Ride kind of thing. And I almost got rid of this, and I'm so glad I didn't. And I'm slapping myself for even considering it because this is one of my favorite sets ever. Here I have some just buildable characters. I don't love these, but I have them. And, you know, my wife likes the look of them because we've made this garage kind of our girls' playroom. And so it's it adds some kind of fun aesthetic to it. Here I have the Avengers Tower and also the Daily Bugle. I feel like the Daily Bugle is the stronger of the two, but yeah, these are both great sets. So much going on, and just like the Daily Bugle, and especially for the price, you got so many figures, so much detail. It's a set that almost shouldn't even really exist, in my opinion, because of just how perfect it is, and it feels like a my own creation, a mock, because I just, you know, it's got everything you could possibly want. The Avengers Tower, similarly, I feel like, you know, but the Avengers Tower, it was more expensive, and so you kind of knew what you were going to get, but the Daily Bugle, I think, was the better value for the money. All right, and Harry Potter. The only thing I love more than toys and Star Wars is Harry Potter. Harry Potter is what got me into reading. I was never a book reader as a kid, and then I used to make fun of Harry Potter actually when it was kind of all the rage, and I think only the first 2 or 3 books were out, and I used to be like, "Oh, Harry Potter's for nerds and whatever." And then one time, my aunt bought me, I think, the first 4 books as part of a book set, and I gave it a shot one summer, and man, was I hooked. And what's crazy is my grades completely improved after that summer. I don't know if it was reading or whatnot, but it just changed my entire, like, I remember not taking school seriously even when I was in elementary school. And then after starting to read Harry Potter, I became a 4.0 student. So I don't know if that's a coincidence or if reading just made that much of an impact, but I love Harry Potter. I'm a proud Ravenclaw. Anyways, here, with Harry Potter, I was trying to just do the direct to consumer sets. And then, oh, well, it'll kind of look cool to have some of these other ones. And then before I knew it, I was kind of collecting the entire minifig scale line as well. But you'll see here I have Gringotts. Now, aside from the haunted house, this is probably my second favorite Lego set of all time. I know a lot of people were like, oh, can't we just get the bank by itself? I don't really want the under part because it's so expensive, but to me, this is a dream Lego set. I mean, the fact that they included this railway underground system underneath is just phenomenal. I love everything about it. It's just an amazing set. It's very screen accurate. I love that there's a side building there and then a little alley. And yeah, I can't say enough good things about this set. I'll probably have to do just a separate review about it just so I can gush about it for 10 minutes. But I absolutely love this set, and for many people, I think they were struggling to figure out how to display it with the rest of Diagon Alley, which I actually didn't love as much as I thought I would. I remember when Diagon Alley was teased and it was announced, I remember not loving it just because this building in particular, for whatever reason, I don't know if I'm the only one who thinks that, but I feel like this from here up should have been a different color because that all pink at the top just looks super flat to me. And it kind of ruined the whole aesthetic of the set. Now, obviously, Wheezy's Wizard Wheezes is fantastic, and I love the little alley for, Nocturne Alley. And the other buildings are cool, but I just remember not liking this one, and it was just so pink and so flat, and I don't remember seeing a pink and flat building in the movies enough for it to be such a pinnacle of this set. And then without Gringotts too, I was like, oh man. Now it's an amazing set. You get so much for your money, and it's like an entire street in one Lego set. So in terms of value for the money, it's fantastic. And I think everyone who loves Harry Potter should have it, especially now with Gringotts. But I decided to kind of put, have the shelf be here and then just have this sitting on a lower shelf so it can all be kind of one street. And I like the way that turned out. Now here I have the Hogwarts Express. So at the time this was announced and launched, we didn't have Gringotts yet, and that's what everyone was waiting for. So when this was announced, everyone, including myself, was like, where's Gringotts? Why are we getting this overly priced, minifig scale? Even though it technically is a minifig scale train, it doesn't scale up well with the other kind of adult trains like the Emerald Knight or the Horizon Express. And it was so expensive. It was like $400 or maybe $500. And a lot of those pieces went to the station, which is kind of bland. And it just didn't need to be this big. And it can't run too. And you can't motorize it, which is a bummer. Now, it looks great as kind of a display piece. But I think for anybody who wanted it to be a train set or ride around their city, it doesn't work in that way. But for me, it looks great here. And I kind of just put the Ministry of Magic and Grimmauld Place behind it just because I like that busy aesthetic. And it kind of looks like, you're going through London. Below here, these are sets that I probably will end up having to sell once some additional direct-to-consumer Harry Potter sets come out. But this is kind of just to flesh out my, Harry Potter. I think they've teased a direct-to-consumer Hogsmeade Village, so I'll probably have to get rid of all this when that comes out because I love the direct-to-consumer stuff. And then up here we have the Microscale castle, and I remember being super disappointed when that set was announced because I wanted a minifig scale castle, and even though it's an accurate kind of silhouette of Hogwarts Castle, the fact that it's not minifig scale always kind of bugged me. And now they're making these realistic minifig scale castle sets. Finally, it's like their fifth time doing a Hogwarts line, and they're finally trying to make all the pieces connect to look like one big castle that actually looks like the silhouette. And so that's kind of made me think of potentially getting rid of this, just because the other one will look similar when all is said and done, and it will be minifig scale. But yeah, a lot of extra little sets here, like the Whomping Willow and this lake tournament thing, and the original Daily Bugle, or not Daily Bugle, sorry, the Burrow. This is the minifig scale Burrow. Now they did release a direct to consumer one, but I haven't picked that up just because I don't know, I can't justify it when I still have this one. So I'm gonna have to eventually trim this Harry Potter stuff down and probably just keep it the direct to consumer stuff. And then up here, I have kind of like the more recent Harry Potter Hogwarts line. And I actually think this looks really cool because it's such a detailed interior. It's so much going on, and I really like it up there. Again, the newest Hogwarts line is more accurate, but I can't deny the appeal that this has, especially with all the play features. I remember when they announced the Chamber of Secrets and the little, and you can connect, the little Moaning Myrtle's bathroom above it and have the slide work and everything. I just thought that was really cool. Because previous Hogwarts iterations, everything was kind of just random and not accurate. And even though this doesn't look accurate, at least the play functions do tell a story. All right, this is kind of another little nook of sets that don't really belong anywhere else, but I have the roller coaster and the Ferris wheel there. And I had the carousel, but I trimmed that down just because I never really loved it. It was never just the grand carousel, the red and white one. This was the second carousel with kind of the blue color scheme. And it always just felt like, oh man, if I can't have the grand carousel, I don't even want it. So I sold that one along with the tower drop ride. But I kept these two just because I think they're great builds, and I don't know, they made another roller coaster and they made a smaller kind of 3-in-1 Ferris wheel, but these are pretty iconic and I just love them. This set, this, believe it or not, is probably, okay, non-Star Wars, this is probably my favorite Lego set of all time. This was actually the set that got me back into Lego as an adult. So in 2011, or I forget exactly when this was launched, I think it was 2010 or 2011, I was walking by the Lego store window and I saw a haunted house. I've always been a big fan of everything spooky, Halloween, all that stuff. And when I saw this, man, because I had always wanted like a spooky Lego set when I was a kid. They had like Monster Hunter, not Monster Fighters, this was Monster Fighters, but they had like a Universal Monsters theme, which was kind of like part of their studio sets. And that was the closest we ever got to like, haunted or monster sets. And I had all of those and I loved them. And so when this and the Monster Fighters line came out, that one was obviously geared more towards kids, but this one was an adult build. And man, I loved it. And I bought this, and this is what kind of brought me into my Lego renaissance. So there's a chance that if this set had never come out, I may never have gotten back into Lego as an adult. So that's saying a lot. But yeah, I love that set. I have some of the Dungeons and Dragon monsters kind of displayed with it, but I just love everything about that set. And yeah, I think it's probably my favorite Lego set of all time just because of how special it is in terms of bringing me back into Lego. Over here we have the Sanctum Sartorial. I was super excited about this set when it was announced, and then when it kind of was revealed, I remember thinking it just seems small, and it really, the biggest eye-opener was these windows. I think they just, compared to a modular building, it just felt really small. There's a lot of detail in there, but because I'm not actively playing with my Lego sets, I'd much rather have bigger, more detailed exteriors than, really detailed interiors and smaller outsides. So I don't know, agree to disagree with me on that. But I forget the name of this monster. I know it's not Mephisto, but it's something similar to that. But the set itself comes with like a little version of this, but I just bought the actual minifig scale set so I could put this on the side of the building. And then Stranger Things. This was a really random release because Stranger Things is not really geared towards kids. And so I thought it was interesting that Lego made this. And then they had teased another Stranger Things set that never came out. I think everyone was expecting like the mall or something like that, and it never happened. So this one's kind of one and done, but they did just announce a new Brickhead Stranger Things set. So who knows? Maybe with the final season, we'll get another direct to consumer Stranger Things set. But this is a really cool one because you can flip it upside down, and the fact that it just holds up, it's a really tremendous kudos to Lego engineering. All right, now this is upstairs in our loft. These are just some of the rest of the Lego sets I have. I have the Dungeons and Dragons there, and then I have part of the medieval village. I have the Lion Knight's castle, the rest of the medieval village, which I kind of used risers to stack those up on top of each other just to give it that more kind of busy European mountainside town look. And I have the blacksmith shop, which was an idea set. But I really love this line. I'm excited to kind of have it together, and I really love the way it looks and just how busy and fun this part of town looks. And then above that, I have these other larger Monkie Kid sets, which again, the super underrated theme. And if it's not too late, I encourage you to kind of get on those. But I don't remember, I don't remember the names of all these, but they're really large, super detailed sets. And I remember for the price, you get so much in terms of minifigures and unique pieces and everything. And the Titanic, no adult collection of Lego is complete without the Titanic, which I have there. Big fan of that one. And I think this appeals to all types of kind of audiences. And even if you're not a big Lego fan, if you like the Titanic or you're just looking for something cool to display in a nook like this, the Titanic is the way to go. And last but not least, we have the Taj Mahal. This was the first set that my wife was okay with us displaying inside the house because it matched our aesthetic. I've slowly snuck more Lego sets into the main part of our house, but the majority of my collection is in the garage / my office / our kids' playroom. But this is the second release of the Taj Mahal. I think it was nearly identical. There was maybe one or two pieces difference. We had this displayed in our old house in our living room where there was direct sunlight, so it has yellowed over time, unfortunately. But I mean, I think the real Taj Mahal has yellowed over time, so I'm not too upset. This probably should have been part of my UCS Star Wars series, but this is the only art Lego set I ever bought, and I bought 3 of the kind of Sith Art collection just so I could build that Darth Vader, and I love the way that one looks. You may have already seen this, but I'm just going to quickly show you my UCS Star Wars collection in case you haven't seen my other video, and I did make a full video tour of this, but this is my Lego Star Wars stuff, so be sure to check out that video as well if you want to take a closer look at that. Alrighty folks, so I hope you enjoyed the tour of my Lego collection. I did trim down my collection quite a bit, even though it may not look like it. I had all the creator expert cars, and I had some other kind of, direct-to-consumer sets and buildings and whatnot. But this is kind of everything that I love and will never hopefully get rid of. And I do plan to incorporate that additional Ninjago City set at some point, and also Belle's Castle from Beauty and the Beast. I do plan to get that also. But I will do a ranking of my modular building collection, and I'll actually grab each one and put it on a table in front of me and go through the minifigures and the different floors, and we'll do my definitive ranking of the modular buildings in my collection. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, this is Salim for Flip for Figs, and I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you're interested in more Lego stuff or more action figure stuff, please do like and subscribe. And feel free to shout out in the comments if there's any one of these sets that you'd like a closer look at. And I'll see you next time.
When I flip, you flip, we flip.